I mean, Hardit's here in my top 10 wide receiver plays of Week 15. Number 10, I have Jarvis Landry. He is going to avoid Patrick Peterson in the slot. He has 2 weeks as a top 6 wide receiver and 4 inside the top 20 since the Browns' Week 7 bye. Overall, he joins DJ Moore as the only wide receivers with over 70 targets during that span. Speaking of, DJ Moore is my wide receiver 9 this week. Say what you will about Kyle Allen, he knows how to get DJ Moore the ball at least. The Seahawks have been a little bit better in the secondary recently, but this is still not a unit to fear. Trust the volume. Number 8, I have Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper at Jerry World is pretty much a fantasy cheat code. He scored a touchdown or cleared 100 yards in 9 of 12 career games in Dallas. Jalen Ramsey is a problem, but they move Cooper around enough, and with the volume, I think he can win. Number 7, I have Julio Jones. It's been a rough stretch, but no Ridley should finally force Matt Ryan to feed Julio all the targets he can handle. Obviously, the matchup is brutal versus the 49ers, but they're very banged up at the moment. Dee Ford, Richard Sherman, and Kawhi Williams could all be sidelined. Number 6, I have Devonte Adams. It was surprising to see a letdown last week versus Washington, but hey, he's got another home date on the way against a banged-up Bears secondary. Do not make a habit of betting against Rodgers and Adams at Lambeau. Number 5, I have Julian Edelman. We've seen Cooper Kupp, D.D. Westbrook, Jarvis Landry, and Cole Beasley have some big days in the slot versus the Bengals defense. Edelman has double-digit targets in 8 straight games. He's been the only elite fantasy performer in the Patriots offense. Continue to treat him as an every-week wide receiver 1. Number 4, I have Chris Goblin. We all know Mike Evans is out, which should mean plenty of Goblin. Darius Slay is a baller and one of very few shadow cornerbacks that will move into the slot consistently. With that said, we've seen him allow boom performances to Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, and Stephon Diggs when they've been given enough volume, which Goblin should have. Number 3, I have DeAndre Hopkins. He just also happens to be the PPR wide receiver 3 on the season. He's been getting absolutely fed with Will Fuller sidelined. Even if Fuller is back, this is a smash spot against a very injured Titans secondary. Number 2, I have Tyree Kill. It's been a little bit since we've seen a boom week out of him, but come on. If Patrick Mahomes is healthy and Ty Freak is healthy, you got to have this guy as a top 5 option at the position. Chris Harris is plenty capable of locking up receivers from the slot, but they haven't used him from there this season. The most he's played inside is just 12 snaps, including when they faced off earlier in the year. My number 1 wide receiver of Week 15 is Michael Thomas. He's currently averaging the 11th most PPR per game in a single season over the past 50 years at the wide receiver position. Don't overthink this. He has 7 games with double-digit catches this season. Nobody else is even above 4.
John Daigle here, and these are my top 10 running backs for Week 15. Number 10, Alvin Kamara. Kamara's averaged 10.4 carries and 8.6 targets since the Saints returned from their bye in Week 10, but his limited red zone usage in that span, in favor of Jared Cook and Taysom Hill nonetheless, forced him down the list of weekly bell cows being started with confidence this week. Number 9, Nick Chubb. Chubb has averaged just under 20 carries per game since Kareem Hunt joined the team, averaging a whopping 4.8 yards per attempt in that span. He remains a confident, usage-based 1 against the Cardinals this week. Number 8, Leonard Fournette. Unlike their Week 14 matchup against the Chargers, an early 3-score deficit isn't a concern for the Jaguars, and Fournette in particular, against a struggling Oakland defense this Sunday. Start Fournette with confidence. Aaron Jones, number 7. Coach speak led to Jones handling 22 touches against Washington, his highest mark since Week 5. Expect more of the same and a concerted effort against a Bears defense that recently lost middle linebacker Roquan Smith for the year with a torn pec. Number 6, Saquon Barkley. Barkley got every backfield touch on 63 of 66 snaps against the Eagles on Monday night due to Wayne Gallman's fall from grace and inevitable healthy scratch. Simply put, fantasy players should chase Barkley's every down opportunity against Miami, who has allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs this year. Number 5, Ezekiel Elliott. Dallas' offense has undoubtedly struggled in their 3-game losing streak, but Zeke still averaged 21 touches in that span. He'll continue to do so in a projected shootout at home against the Rams. Number 4, Dalvin Cook. Cook only played 47% of Minnesota's snaps against the Lions, but still handled 20 touches and didn't touch the ball in the 4th quarter since the Vikings did lead 20-0. In what's projected to be a competitive game against the Chargers, Cook's expected to be on the field early and often as a strong RB1. Number 3, Chris Carson. Rashad Penny's trip to injured reserve opens the door for Carson to handle 22 touches, much like he did in his first 10 starts with Penny on the bench. The Panthers, of course, have allowed 5.3 yards per carry to opposing running backs. Number 2, Derrick Henry. Henry played a 5-week low, 37 snaps against the Raiders, but still plowed ahead for 103 yards and 2 rushing scores despite being limited. He'll be limited at practice throughout the week due to his quote-unquote maintenance plan, but he'll be ready for this must-win matchup at home against the Texans. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey mustered 11 catches and 24.5 fantasy points, even in a 20-point division loss under a new coaching regime against the Falcons last week. Continue riding him with confidence at home against a lesser Seahawks front seven.
Josh Norris here with the top 5 quarterback plays for Week 15. Let's start at number 5. That's Deshaun Watson against the Tennessee Titans. After dominating the Patriots, Deshaun Watson's Texans fell way short against the Broncos. Still, we know that Watson saved his day with 29 fantasy points thanks to those 2 rushing touchdowns. And yes, he always brings that big play upside, no matter the situation. So that's why he's still a solid play against the Titans' surging defense. Number 4 is Jameis Winston against the Detroit Lions. I want Jameis Winston nowhere near my NFL team, but I certainly do want him on my fantasy team. Sure, he's been dealing with a thumb issue and he won't have Mike Evans, but Jameis is still on pace for 5,065 passing yards this season, which would be 6th highest in league history. Number 3, Drew Brees against the Indianapolis Colts. We all know Drew Brees put up 6 touchdowns against one of the best defenses in the NFL last week, the 49ers, and now he gets the Colts, a team that gave up 38 and 31 points to the Bucs and Titans over the last 2 weeks. Fire up Drew Brees. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes against the Denver Broncos. It's really been a strange 3 weeks for Mahomes, who has less than 21 fantasy points in each of those games. I do, maybe regrettably, still have faith that Mahomes can hit that ceiling that we all know and love and be an asset for you in your fantasy semifinals. Number 1 is Lamar Jackson against the New York Jets. Yes, Lamar has been limited in practice this week. No, you aren't even thinking about benching him in this spot against the Jets' tanking defense. The Ravens team is one of the best we've seen in years and years, and Lamar is the major reason why, both in the running game and in the passing game. And now on to the top 5 tight ends for Week 15. Let's start off with Hunter Henry against the Minnesota Vikings. Henry now has at least 69 yards or a touchdown in 4 of his last 5 games. That's consistency at a position that lacks it quite often. Hopefully the Chargers can carry their offensive momentum from last week into this difficult matchup against Minnesota. Number 4, Darren Waller against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The last 2 weeks, we know that Hunter Renfrow, the Raiders slot receiver, has been out. And in those games, Waller has tallied 173 yards, respectively. That kind of usage should continue this week against the Jaguars' awful defense. Number 3, Zach Ertz against the Washington Redskins. On Monday night, the Eagles got all the way down to just one healthy receiver. In that injury spell, Zach Ertz has been the beneficiary, averaging 11 targets and 8 receptions and 80 yards over the last 5 games. Number 2, Travis Kelsey against the Denver Broncos. Kelsey is on a similar hot streak over the last 5 games, averaging nearly 9 targets, 7 receptions, and 77 yards. He's one of the 2 key pass catchers for the Chiefs this season and is an easy start against the Denver Broncos. Number 1, George Kittle against the Atlanta Falcons. George Kittle is just an insane football player. He created the play of the season last week, rumbling down the sideline and setting his team up for that game-winning touchdown against the Saints. And conversely, the Falcons defense absolutely sinks. So expect a similar stat line to 70 yards and a score that we saw last week for Kittle.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.